I can't tell you who I am. I can't tell you the name of the program, but what I can tell you is that if what they say is true, we're in trouble. Now, we didn't make contact in the way you would think we would. We didn't beam out an episode of The Office towards Andromeda and hear back from the alien critics, and we definitely didn't meet them face to face. We found another way to communicate, something apparently ancient humans had figured out as well. There are countless dilapidated ancient structures around the world, and some of them, not all, but some, were communication arrays, at least a handful on each continent. I'm sure you'll be able to think of a few after I describe what we did. We've been working on this technology for a while. There has been a long-standing theory that sound has a much larger part in the universe than just being random vibrations. That the universe is simply a bunch of vibrations and sound, and if you find a way to manipulate those vibrations properly, you could do things that seem impossible. We proved that yesterday. By creating an extremely precise echo chamber, and playing certain frequencies into it at precisely the right volumes, at the exact right timings. We broke some sort of barrier. Nothing really happened, visually at least. We had run countless tests like these with tiny minute differences, and this one seemed pretty mundane. There was a slight unnatural thrumming. The glass between us and the echo chamber shook in regular intervals, as if we were playing a bass-heavy song too loudly. The first thing that tipped us off that something was happening was that once we turned the speakers off, the thrumming didn't stop. My 3 coworkers and I could all feel the thrumming in our chests still, kind of like being next to a very loud drum. And we talked for a moment, before we all fell silent. There was something else now. It wasn't a voice, it was some sort of intelligent vibration. I can't explain it. It was like a voice was inside my chest, but it wasn't speaking. I could just feel what it was saying. My cohorts and I debated on exact wording afterwards, but we all agreed on the overall messages each time. Like I said, they weren't really talking, so I'll do my best to phrase it in ways to get across what they said, in the way they said it. Whoa, you guys are back? Is what I felt in my chest. My colleagues and I stared at each other in utter confusion. One of them spoke up. Hello? There was a silence for a moment, before the thrumming spoke back. I think I haven't said it right now. Say that again? Hello? Yep. There it is. You guys figured it out again. That's crazy. This wasn't what I was thinking the first human-alien conversation was going to go. I wasn't even sure that this was first contact at this point, though. Who is this? What is this? I asked loudly into the open air of our control room. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to give you details like who we are, but what this is the ultimate form of communication in our universe. Your ancestors figured it out briefly, too. With some quick deduction on how it was wording things, I think each of us figured out what we were talking to was alien in origin, around the same time. Where are you from? You have to be close. Hell, with the way we were talking back and forth, they had to be really close. It takes communications to Mars a few minutes to get there, just because that's as fast as light is. If we were talking this quickly back and forth, they basically had to be on Earth. I guess you wouldn't know. We didn't tell your ancestors. We didn't think they'd get it. Let me do some math real quick. It was about a minute before it spoke again. What you see is your observable universe. That's not the whole universe. Not even close. Multiply that by about 15, and that's about how far away we are. And there's a lot past that. We all looked at each other. It was speaking utter bullshit to us now. That was impossible. We'd never be able to communicate. Ever. Physically impossible. We explained that to the chest voice. We were met by an equal level of confusion. Why are you still using light as a yardstick? It asked incredulously. Suddenly, Its voice grew slightly dire. "You're still not advanced enough. You don't even know." "Know what?" "You are dead center in the life abyss. There is no life on any planet around you. For more than tens of your observable universes around you in any direction. It's a universal mystery how you're even alive." It spoke grimly. Never in my life had I felt smaller, more insignificant, and more alone. It continued. "And there is a reason for that." An earnest and tangible feeling of dread took over the control room. "There's a reason for that." It reverberated through my entire body as the vibration spoke. But then, silence. No one in the control room spoke a word. We barely even looked at each other. The silence continued for over a minute, and it felt like a day. "What's the reason?" Dave, the senior scientist on hand, finally spoke. He had chosen a serious and somber tone, in an endless list of choices on how to react. "If you value your lives, if you value the lives of every living thing on your planet, never use this form of communication ever again." It shook into our chests. That one felt less welcoming. It felt like a dire warning. And just like that, we felt the tingling and shaking force leave our chests. It just simply faded away, like how a chord of guitar is plucked. We looked now to one another. What was the play? Forge on bravely into the void in the name of science and play the frequencies again? Or take an alien warning and stop? We didn't get to make that decision. Our program is monitored closely by the US military. A voice came I didn't recognize over the intercom. "Don't touch anything, folks. We're gonna come in and take a look at a few things." Dave took charge. We were all clearly panicked at what we had experienced, but he seemed to have the most level head. "All we can do is tell the truth," he reasoned, just as the door to the control room was opened. The next hour or so was a blur. I was first questioned by my boss as to what he just watched over his monitor. What he saw was a handful of his employees standing in a circle and periodically yelling nonsense at no one in particular. I took Dave's advice to heart and told him as clearly as I could what happened. I think I was the first he talked to. He wasn't buying anything I said. Slowly, I was joined by the rest of the team, one by one, and they recounted pretty much exactly what I had said. So now, what they knew was that we all had started a test, then stood around in a circle, and then all came up with the same story. It started to get more believable. We were each rushed into individual physical exams and then into a more in-depth interview with someone from the military. The exam seems to go well. I never heard back from them. The interview seemed to be going good as well. I had basically recounted what I had said to my boss word for word, just this time on tape and in front of some guy in an army uniform. Just when things seemed to be wrapping up, the door to our small interviewing office opened behind me. "Sir, we need you down the hall immediately." A woman in army fatigue spoke quickly, before rushing back down the hallway. I looked back to the man interviewing me, but he was already halfway out the door before I could say anything. I was sitting there for a few minutes. I had time to think. Was I crazy if I believed whatever the thing in my chest was telling me? Everything it said sounded impossible, but nothing of it felt like a lie. Even though I could only feel what it was saying, I could feel its excitement when we first made contact. I could feel the desperation in it as it told us to never contact it again. What was important, though? Nothing felt like a lie. I noticed that my interviewer had been taking notes as we spoke. Now that it had been left alone for a few minutes, I thought, what was the harm in taking a peek? I slowly reached over the table and flipped his papers over. They read, "Unknown frequency report. Subject, insert my name. Significant physical changes to the subject since his last physical 6 months ago, according to the base physician, after exposure to the frequencies in this report. No cosmetic changes or complaints of pain or unease. Describes vibrations in chest. Describes hearing voices after being exposed to the frequencies. No history of mental illness. Frequencies that cause mental illness? Breaks with reality? Hallucinations?" That's as far as he got before he was interrupted. I slid the papers back across the table and sat back in my chair. All of us had described the same thing, but they were thinking we were all just crazy. It warned us, and the more I thought about it, I wanted to take that warning to heart. I sat up starkly. She said down the hall. The control room was down the hall. With how they rushed us out of there, we didn't even have a chance to turn the machinery off. We didn't even turn a single dial in our stun states. And all they had to do was press a button and the vibrations would play again. Shit! I exploded out of my seat, through the door and down the hall. I ripped the door through the control room open, to all of the military officers and a few more scientists standing there in disbelief. I haven't even heard the vibrations again, but I can hear the voice on the other side, and now, so could they. I just told you to never use this again, it thundered in my chest. A few of the older men in the room grabbed their chests in pain. 1 second, I need to check something. It spoke again angrily. You could have gotten away with it just using it once. Twice is too much. His sentence ended in a twinge of fear. He heard you. He's listening right now. And he's coming. This is an apology. Over the last week, I have posted 2 hysterical stories about making alien contact with a far-off intelligent species. These stories, while being a fun writing exercise, have not been appropriate for someone in my position working with the government. They were complete fabrications on my behalf, born from a bored mind after watching an episode of Ancient Aliens. There's no evidence that can cause read vibrations, and there's no magical frequencies that can cross impossible distances in the blink of an eye. Everything I wrote is pure science fiction. I wouldn't be posting this in truth if it weren't for the higher-ups where I work finding out about my little stories. That was an embarrassing talking to. I truly didn't even mean to write a second part, but the demand was through the roof. I thank you for this. It's really cool to have a bunch of people praising your writing, even though it was just that. Writing. I've been told I should try and squash any conspiracy theories that might pop up, so I'm going to be giving you my personal info. My name is Brian King, I'm 34 and I live in Washington, D.C. I'm a white male, overweight. I have a wife and 3 children, so my job in providing for them is far more important than any writing exercise online could ever be. I've actually been suspended from work for the time being. They said if I posted something like this to clarify that it was all fake, that it would be a good first step to coming back to work. This is my livelihood we're talking about. I can't mess around. I've also been told to write this and mention every aspect was totally fictitious. That includes the echo chamber and any devices I may have described. That includes any intelligent life form from the far-off reaches beyond our capabilities of detecting at this time. That includes any mention of some extraterrestrial threat that our planet may be facing. That includes any physical examinations that myself or my coworkers may have underwent and have been found to have abnormalities. All of it's false. None of it is true. So yes, unless someone figures it out, this will be my last time you'll hear from me. I'm truly flattered that everyone liked my writing so much, and I think this will end my storytelling career. At least for a good long while. Who knows though, maybe after my career of rocket science and planetary orbits, I could become a writer. You have to keep an eye out for me on the bestsellers list in a few years. Maybe I'll continue my totally fictitious and not true at all about an alien who can talk to us from universes away. Nah, away with that. That's probably too far-fetched for anyone to ever buy in any amount anyway. Thank you again for reading, and I am deeply sorry, NASA, for any shame our doubts have brought to our organization. I will walk this off and get back to work. Forget the codes. Good job on figuring one of them out, but forget them. This is bigger than my job at this point. This is about the world. This is about you, the person reading this, and what you can expect moving forward in the next weeks. I fled the country at this point, and I'm using a program that makes it very difficult for anyone to track where I am. It's possible, but it'll take a while, and if I keep moving, I think I'll be fine. I have to get the truth out there. The vibration chamber is real. The special frequencies are real. The thing coming for us is real. I'll start where I left off. It's a lot to digest. Just stay with me here. What the hell is this? One of the army men in the room replied back, hitting himself in the chest in confusion. To be fair, it's a weird feeling, not hearing something speak to you, but feeling it. I have to stress that once again, it's not like this vibration was actually speaking English to us. It was vibrating in a way that got a message across. That's the best way I can explain it. Angry vibrations are a little harder to get a good grip on, I guess, but I'll do my best to tell you what it said. Shut up! Just shut up! It hammered back into our chests. I kind of felt like I had a rapport with the being on the other side. It seemed pretty pleased when we first contacted it, but now, furious. If you just stumbled upon this technology, the chances of you having the technology repel it is pretty much zero. It spoke matter-of-factly. A slighter vibration was felt next, even if we only have that half figured out. I guess it was mumbling to itself. Cut this shit out immediately. A smart but gruff-looking man in a suit yelled into the room. I hadn't even noticed him. He was standing in the back of the corner, but he had an important way of holding himself. The vibration didn't respond. Now tell us who this is and what this technology is. We have to figure it out ourselves, and we will not be happy. By the way he was talking, I guess he was actually important. I had noticed, but my palms were now on either side of my head, in a sort of, "What the hell are you doing?" kind of look on my face. Suddenly, the man in the suit collapsed with a thud to the floor. All few men rushed to his aid and sat him up against the wall. This technology is dangerous, in more ways than one. The vibration finally spoke again vaguely. And you're not advanced enough to protect against its many, many ways of hurting you. There's no point in turning it off now. He's still listening, but he already knows where you are. Turning it off won't do anything. It continued in its pounding tone. It was even starting to hurt my chest a bit now. Who is he? I spoke gingerly into the void of the room. The men and women, around 10 of them, looked at me, some of them nodding. The being began its diatribe. He doesn't have a name. I can't even describe it. There are 4 of them that we know about, and it's just your luck. The meanest one of all is coming for you. The air somehow got thinner in the room as it continued. It was getting hard to breathe. You must have a basic understanding of biology at this point. I don't know how smart you people are, but try and picture this. You, as a person, started from a single-celled organism meeting an egg. You grew and evolved rapidly into something millions of times the size you once were, with billions of times the power. Can we agree on that much? Yes. A woman in the room spoke softly. I didn't have time to think. It continued. Then imagine, if you could do that process again, changing in shape to something you wouldn't even begin to recognize as your species, growing to enormous proportions and owning a sheer force that no living thing could rival, that no military force could dream of stopping. Throw in the ability to tune into this machinery, survive in the void of space, and who knows what else. This process is under extreme and precise conditions in our universe. Possible. Everyone in the room was silent now. How do you respond to something like that? What do we do? I spoke again for the room as I shifted uncomfortably in the cold silence. We are eons ahead of you in every field you can think of, and we can't stop them. We are so far away from you, it's impossible to describe. We cannot protect you. We will try and help. The collective will do its best, but really, you are alone.